Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with a blind reaction to a movie reaction to Tuck Everlasting. This is a donation reward for Venom 0027, or Sweet Venom. Going with the old name there for a second there. This is a donation for Sweet Venom. And yeah, I don't know anything about this. I don't know what this movie is. I've heard the name before. But I don't know what this is at all. I don't know anything about it. The title, I guess a character's name is Tuck and they're everlasting. That could mean a lot of things, but I don't know. It's like it's such a vague title too, because like it could mean so much. So it's hard to actually parse anything from that. I don't know who's in this film. I don't know who made this film. I don't know anything about it. The only thing I think I might know is that I think it's a love story, because usually I think I've heard it mentioned in kind of the same vein as stuff like The Notebook and whatnot. Um, so I don't know if it's actually like The Notebook at all, but I've heard it mentioned with like alongside stuff like that. And so it's like that's what I think of when I think of The Notebook, a love story. And it's like, okay. I mean, it just depends on how it's done for me. There's a lot of love stories I like, a lot of love stories that I find not that great. So just gonna depend on how it's done. But like I said, I don't know what to expect because I know nothing about this film. So I don't know what that says, but we'll, I guess, find out. Um, so obviously you're seeing this on the weekend, but I am recording this during the week. Um, yeah, if you didn't somehow hear or whatnot, I do want to just mention real quick, like movie reactions are relegated to the weekend now, but I am recording them during the week. So it's just a way to make sure we have some content during the weekend. Since nothing is scheduled anymore, um, it's like the weekends end up being pretty bare because I usually don't have the time to record on the weekend. So, yeah, not really much I can do about that. But, but, yeah, nonetheless, I nonetheless think that it's a good idea to put them on the weekends. I feel like there's a little more time for movies on the weekends, for people to watch movie reactions on the weekends anyway, normally, so it works out. Um, and it's like it's basically the only things on the schedule that are scheduled. Everything else is still just whenever I get to it. So it's like, okay, whatever, fine. But yeah, so let's just get into this and see what we have in store. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades black, then it fades back in. Everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, this movie was not what I expected it to be, pretty much at all. Um, like I had some thoughts and guesses based on the title and everything. And as it went along, I started to like put things together and everything. But at the same time, it's like this was not like your typical love story kind of thing. And in fact, the love aspect of it was not the focus of this. Like, I feel like if you call this a romance movie, you're kind of missing the point. Like, yeah, was romance a part of it? Yeah, definitely. But that's not what the movie was about at all. the movie wasn't about young love that had to be torn apart by unfortunate circumstances. The movie was about living your life to its best. And just, the idea of immortality being flawed by nature and being kind of inherently crappy. This movie it wasn't a love story, it just had love in it. And I think that's what sets this apart from a lot of others. It was, in my opinion, way better than it had any right being, but it wasn't perfect. A lot of it was really, really slow, like really slow, and there were points at it where honestly I was kind of bored, if I'm being honest. And for a movie that's only an hour and a half long, that's not really a good thing. It's not like it overstayed its welcome and was just too long. No, it's just, it wasn't that entertaining. But when it did hit the good points, it did get good. Like, really good. The problem is the slower parts in between. The idea of this family that is cursed with immortality and showing how immortality is a bad thing is a great idea. Because there's a lot of media that tries to make you think that immortality would be good. That the idea of having such a finite life is, like, undesirable. And that we should all, like, or that we all do wish that we could live forever. And it's like, I'm sorry, but no. I've talked about this before on the channel plenty of times. The idea of living forever, and especially full immortality where you can't even be killed, is terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. There's nothing positive about it. There's nothing good about it. It's not a pleasant idea at all. There's so much pain and misery that would come from that. And so it's always bothered me, just the idea of, like, people wishing they could live forever. It's like, if you knew what that would all entail, you would not wish that. And so I'm glad that there are movies out here like this that are, painting that picture. And that put the value on living your life because of how finite it is. Because that's another thing that people have to realize. It's like, life is so valuable to live because you only get one. It's finite. It's not something that just goes on forever. You have to make the most of it while you have it. Scarcity creates value. Like, that's not only true when it comes to, products and services in the world. It's true for everything. When something is scarce, when something is rare or legendary or whatnot, does it not hold value because of that? You think of, like, rare gemstones being the most valuable. You think of legendary heroes being the most awesome and cool. It's like, why are they awesome and cool? Not because of just their feats, but because they're so rare, they're so unique. They're a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. And it's the same with a regular human life. It's finite, and so it means more. If you're immortal, nothing matters. You can do anything, and it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying that morality doesn't matter or anything stupid like that. I'm saying that it's like nothing in your life will have any value because it's like you can experience pretty much anything and everything. And it's just, it's gonna, after a while, become stale and boring and just not enjoyable. And it's wild to me that anyone could see things differently. But another factor that made this movie as good as it was the actors. Like, this is chock full of just great actors. The main actress, I believe Alison Bedell is her name. Let me just make absolutely sure on that. I looked her up in between. Alexis Bedell, sorry. I looked her up in between, and she hasn't really been in much of anything I would know her for. But I do know William Hurt, Sissy Spacek, and Ben Kingsley. And all of them did a fantastic job. And even the ones I don't know, Alexis Bedell, Jonathan Jackson, Scott Bairstow. Though Scott Bairstow's name kind of sounds familiar. Let me see if I might know him from anything. But even the ones I didn't know, it's like they all did a really good job. It's like they really like sold their roles and felt like, people, honestly. Uh Looks like Scott Bairstow's been in a couple things I know, but like nothing I would know him for. So, okay. The name just, I guess, sounds familiar. Or maybe there's someone else with the last name Bairstow that I might know. I don't know. Um, but yeah, this was, again, better than I expected and better than it really had any right being. Because a lot of this felt like, let's be honest, a Disney Channel original movie. Um, but then the parts that like really nailed it in felt a lot like a bigger picture, something a lot more special and cinematic in a way. So it kind of gave me a little bit of tonal whiplash in that regard. Not a lot, and it wasn't like really bad with it like I've seen other movies do, but still. Um, Now, going off of the reviews and everything, apparently, according to Rotten Tomatoes, and as always, take that with a grain of salt because it's fucking Rotten Tomatoes. The film received a 60% rating based on 120 reviews, with an average rating of 6.3 out of 10. The critical consensus reads, though slow moving, bleh, Tuck Everlasting raises big issues and explores them with sensitivity. On Metacritic, the film has a 66 out of 100, indicating generally favorable. And Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times, though I don't know why it always says of the Chicago Sun-Times, it's like everybody fucking knows who Roger Ebert was. He gave the film 2 out of 4 stars, writing that the film is too impressed with its own solemn insights to work up much entertainment value. He further writes that the film's message is questionable, opining, the injunction to live life fully need not come with a time limit. That's why the outcome of the romance is so unsatisfactory. Um, Obviously, he's acting as if this was a romance film, which it probably was marketed as such, which is unfair to the film because it's not a romance film. Um, Not every movie with romance in it is a romance film. The romance would have to be front and center, the point of the film, for it to be a romance film. But his other part here, the injunction to live life fully need not come with a time limit, is bullshit. It's absolutely bullshit. Because it's like, no, it kind of does. Again, the value comes from the scarcity. It's living your life fully cannot happen being immortal. it's not living your life. It's just existing. So I'm sorry, but like, there's a lot I've agreed with Roger Ebert on, but there's also a lot I've disagreed with him on. But anyways, going to Rotten Tomatoes, we find out that while it has a 60% tomato meter score, the audience score is 70%, a whole 10% higher. And that happens a lot of times where the audience score is a lot more, I feel, realistic to what people think of the movie than the tomato meter score. If I were to give it a score, I'd probably have it be somewhere between 70 and 75. I think that's pretty accurate. 60% is way too low, though. Like, it's definitely much better than that. Like, the funny thing is this movie has a lower score than Dumb and Dumber. And that is fucking tragic. Because Dumb and Dumber is fucking stupid. Like, there's a couple good jokes in it, but it's not better than this. No. Let's look at some actual reviews, though. So, also, this was based on a book, apparently. Just as a note here, I don't think I knew that before, but there's a lot of movies that are based on books, so it's not a surprise. Eleanor Ringgold Cater of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution writes, harks back to a time when movies had more to do with imagination than market research, which, sure, I can give you that. Ken Tucker of Entertainment Weekly says, any movie that signals the menace of a potential lynching by zooming its camera through the loop of a gallows noose cannot claim subtlety. But the director Jay Russell never lets the swirling emotions of Tuck become too drippy. Okay. Joel Siegel of Good Morning America says, Tuck Everlasting is a beautifully told fable with a kind of Halloween twist. And it's like, okay. I don't really see a Halloween twist to it. But there's also some negative reviews on here. Jocelyn Novak of the Associated Press says, those with the patience to submit to its low-energy charms may find their time well spent. And I do agree that there were a lot of parts that it was slow. And it was, like, really fucking slow. So I don't disagree with that. But I thought the charms were actually very realistic. Like, the charm of the characters and the relationships, I thought was actually pretty well handled. Ed Park of Village Voice says, Beadle and Jonathan Jackson's gorge-side canoodling drifts dangerously close to Blue Lagoon territory. I don't know what Blue Lagoon is, so I can't say on that. But clearly that's a bad thing. I thought the relationship was fine. Kathy Mayo, either way, I apologize for mispronouncing it either way, says the magazine, or from the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, says it's a waste of a perfectly good fantasy fable. But should we expect any less from the heirs of Uncle Wait? I don't know what that means. Is that another movie? Or is that like, what is that saying? I don't know what that's saying. But I thought it was a perfectly fine fantasy fable. Back to a positive one, Felix Vasquez Jr. from Cinema Crazed says a really good and thought-provoking film on life and true romance. I would say on life, but again, the romance is not the focus here, my dudes. And Betsy Bozdeck of DVDjournal.com says, yes, kids, there's a lesson to learn here, and the movie never quite lets you forget it, which is perhaps its biggest fault. Okay, that's a positive review. And we'll end with some audience reviews. Let's see what the audience says, because as I said, I always kind of view audience reviews as more like actual realistic viewpoints rather than, critical viewpoints. Emily C gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars and said, I love this movie so much, but I kind of wish there were 2 versions. One where Winifred drank the water and one where she didn't. I can actually see that. I can actually give you that. That would have been okay. I think that would have been a fine thing to do, because movies have done that before, where there's been variations on the endings. Little Shop of Horrors did that. There was the theatrical version, and then there was like a uncut version, which had a very different ending. But Emily C. also goes on to say the rest of the movie definitely gives me Titanic vibes. Okay, I mentioned in the pre-thoughts I had heard it compared to The Notebook, or at least spoken within the same realm. Titanic I could see though, except again it's not. You're kind of comparing it to a romance film. Sean A gave it 4 out of 5 and says it's better than the book. Okay. Though Liam D says it's not the best adaptation of the book. Liam gave it 3 out of 5 stars. This person does not have a name on their profile, but the review for 3.5 out of 5 says when world weary teen Winnie Foster finds herself lost in the woods of her wealthy family's estate, she stumbles up. Okay, you're just telling what happens in it. Okay, Tuck, as short for the movie, possesses an amicable theme about the circle of life. Sure. Okay. So Dale R gave it 2 out of 5 stars and clearly thinks this is a love story as well. The love story between the two leads, played by Alexis Bledel and Jonathan Jackson, is too simple and mundane for my taste. At least he says for my tastes. There were several lines that induced an eye roll from me, okay, and some were over the top for a budding romance. Ben Kingsley plays the villain and does a good job. But his motivation and plans didn't seem to work within the narrative very well. So, talking about that, he did kind of seem tacked on. I will give it that. Like, it seemed like they tacked him on just to have a villain, when honestly they could have just had it be like, you know, the parents searching for her and having misunderstanding about the Tucks and everything. Like, because in the end, his goal was just to, you know, capitalize on the spring. He wanted to capitalize on it, sell access to it, and make a shit ton of money. It was a very basic bitch motivation. And honestly, he really wasn't that threatening. Ben Kingsley did well. He played it well, but the character wasn't that great. I can agree to that. Okay, another unknown reviewer says this movie, with, by the way, a single half star out of 5, says this movie could have possibly been one of the saddest I have ever watched. I am literally about to go cry myself to sleep thinking about how stupid poo Winifred married and had kids, and he was left thinking about her literally. Bye. Okay, what? This person is just like bitching about the fact that she lived her life after the Tucks left, which was kind of the point. And this person literally says the only reason I gave it half a star was because Jesse was hot. Wow. That is the most shallow ass review ever. Like, if you didn't like it, that's fine, but that is shallow as fuck. Okay, so the last one is another mystery one. But it gives 3 out of 5 stars. Adapted from a children's novel, Tuck Everlasting is slow-paced in the beginning, yes, but young teens will be attracted to the love story, not a love story, and the message of immortality, while adults will wonder why someone who can't die would live in the same place for over a century. Because they understood that there was really nothing to do. That's kind of the point. And they did travel. It's not like they didn't travel. They did travel. Like, it showed at the beginning the brothers were coming back from traveling. It's like, yeah, they lived in the same place, but that's because they were humble people and understood that this immortality kind of sucked ass. But yeah, anyways. So this movie was good. It wasn't great. It wasn't anything special, but it was good. It was definitely better than I expected it to be. And honestly, that's what I can hope for. I liked the message more than anything, I think. The message of immortality being a curse rather than a blessing. Like that I really liked. Um, but the movie as a whole had some issues that do bog it down a little bit. But I would love to hear what you think. So let me know in the comments, what did you think of Tuck Everlasting? And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.